Hello everybody. So today we are going to see more detail about the work processes, how a processing will happen when a user sends a transaction to the application server. Okay, so this is a typical layout of presentation, application and database. You can see when you log on to the SAP GUI, you will first connect to the application server, okay, where the dispatcher will pick up your information and then it sends to the database, okay, and fetch the data which you need and send it back to the user. So if you see here, the screen entries of a user are extracted by the presentation program SAP GUI. What it will do, it will convert that into the internal format, okay, and then it will forward it to the ABAP. So what the ABAP dispatcher will do, the ABAP dispatcher is the central process of ABAP. It manages the resources for the applications written in ABAP in coordination with the respective operating system. The main task of the ABAP dispatcher include the distribution of the request to its work processes, the integration of the presentation layer, and the organization of the communication transactions. So the dispatcher first saves the processing requests in request queues and then process them accordingly to the first in and first out. For example, at a time like 3 users are logging one by one. So what will dispatcher will do? It will first select the first user first in, and then it will select the second user, then it will go and so, and then it will send the processing back first out, and similarly second out and third. So the ABAP dispatcher distributes the request one after the other to the available work processes. Okay, so data is actually processed in the work process, whereby the user who created the request using the SAP GUI is not always assigned the same work process. I mean, like you first log into the work to the dialog and dispatcher process the request. Okay, so second time you won't be having that work processes because it could be assigned to some other user, right? So you will be getting some other work processes. So it's not necessary that you will be assigning that work process only. So there is no fixed assignment of work processes to the user. To process user request, it is often necessary to read data from the ABAP schema of the database. So in the database, there is the ABAP schema where it stores all the data of the users. So for this, every work process is connected directly to the ABAP schema of the database. So what happens once your process is complete, the result from the work process is sent to a dispatcher and back to the SAP GUI. So the SAP GUI interprets this data and generates the output screen for the user. Now you can see here the buffer. What is the role of buffer here? The buffers help to speed up processing of user request. Data that is often read but seldom changed. For example, say programs or customizing data such as clients or company codes can be kept as a copy of the database content in the shared memory of the application server. This means that the data does not have to read from the database every time it is needed, but can be called very quickly from the buffer. So each instance has its own buffer. Okay. Now, as we have seen the work processes, now I am talking about inside the work process what ABAP dispatcher and what the task handler does. So basically here, if you see, work processes executes the process logic of application programs. Okay, so in addition to the internal memory, a work process has a task handler that coordinates the actions within a work process, software processes, and a database interface. Here the DynaPro processor executes the screen flow logic of the application program, and it calls the processing logic modules, and then it transfers that field content to the processing logic. So the actual processing logic of the ABAP application programs is executed by the ABAP interpreter. The screen processor tells the ABAP processor which sub-programs need to be executed. So depending on the processing status of the screen flow logic, the dialog work process basically selected by the dispatcher, okay, then it performs a rolling of the user context first. That is the data that contains the current processing status of the running program, as well as the data that characterizes the user is made known to the work process. So what the work process will do then, it will then process the user request, which may involve, for example, say requesting data from the database, right, or from the buffers in the shared memory. So once the dialog work process has processed the dialog step, the work process returns the result, rolls the user context back out to the shared memory, and now it will be available again for a new user request from the request queue. So this is how a result is transferred to the SAP GUI and the user can see the new screen. So this is typically you're seeing what is happening inside the each individual work process, whether it is a dialog, whether it is a background, or any other work process. Hope you understood this session, and we are going to see more about other work processes in our next session. Thank you so much. Bye.